life. If you wanna get the info that'll help you throughout your life, yeah.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of Racism is Not Dead. Actually, that's not the name of this, but that's what I'm saying. Racism is not dead because even though the election has ended, racism has not. And we're still having to talk about it. And today I'm bringing back some of the folks who've been a part of this conversation since the beginning. So why don't you start off by introducing yourself, telling us where you're from, and anything else you want to throw in there. And we'll start with Melody this morning.
Good morning, afternoon. I am Melody Scarborough, and I am located in Durham, North Carolina. And I am happy to be here with my friends that I met a few sessions ago, and we've all become buddies. So glad to be one again.
All right, Gary.
My name is Gary Jones. I am from Philadelphia, by way of North Carolina, actually, in Goldsboro. I am a therapist. I own private practice and also work for an agency, and I'm also an adjunct professor.
Brooks.
Aloha kako. I'm Brooks Boomer Bays. I'm a fifth generation Texan living in Honolulu, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Jeb.
I'm Jeb Buffington. I'm originally from Maine, and I now live in North Carolina. I am a communications and political consultant.
Vicki.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. I'm Vicki Noe. I'm a writer in Chicago, native St. Louis and Cardinals fan, married to a Cubs fan.
All right, perfect. All right. Well, thank you all very much for participating in this call today. I think we all share the same sentiment that we are happy at the election results. But I have a question for each one of you. 70 plus million people did in fact vote for Donald Trump. So I need someone to explain why 70 million people voted for him. So who wants to start this conversation? Somebody enlighten me. Jeb?
Brooks, you were about to say something.
I was about to say
you
something.
go first.
Okay, go ahead, Brooks. Enlighten us.
As nearly as I can tell, he flatters them. He speaks to them and for them in a way that they find refreshing. They know he lies. They know he cheats. They know that he's a con man, and they don't care because he prioritizes their grievances and he enrages liberal people, and they love that. There's a deep-seated cruelty and selfishness and fear on the right. They live in fear. They live in fear, particularly white people, because they are his base. Live in fear of people of color. White men live in fear of women. Christians live in fear of non-Christians, and he stokes all those fears. And they love to be indignant and afraid. And he gives them permission to do that. He gives them permission to tap into their id without fear of contradiction. That's my theory.
Okay,
It's
Vicki.
ugly. It's deeply ugly. He is the symptom. He is not the disease. The disease predated him by decades, and the disease is going to continue for decades.
Vicki, you want to add to that?
I totally agree. And my daughter called me yesterday morning from South Korea, where she's living, and watching all this in horror from there. And she said she'd been watching, one of the talk shows that's online. Now, his name just went out of my head. It'll come back to me. And the premise of his speech was, for a long time, 4 years for sure, 5 years for sure, we've been saying, this is not who we are. This is not who we are. We are better than this. But saying that, John Oliver, I knew would come to me, but saying that this is not us absolves us of the responsibility to consider that it really is us. Because it is. If 70 million people voted for him, this is who we are. It may not be who we are personally, but it's who our family members and neighbors and bosses and employees are. This is who we are. And until we recognize that and accept it, then we can work on it. But as long as we dismiss it with, that's not who we are, then we can ignore it and pretend it's not as bad. And maybe that's why he wound up with millions more votes this time than 4 years ago.
Jeb, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with both Vicky and Brooks. The problem, it's not limited even to America. I mentor a young man from India, not financially, just talking and sort of educationally. And he's fascinated with the rise of Hitler. And I was just exchanging messages with him before I came on the call. And politicians never, there's always something to gain by appealing to the lowest common denominator and our worst instincts. Populism sets those on fire, like as Brooks was saying. You know, if you appeal to those base instincts instead of our better angels, as Lincoln said, you can raise a lot of power, and it's all about power and manipulating hatred and ignorance and prejudice to stir people up to follow behind you. And unfortunately, it's just in human nature to be fearful of the unknown. That's an instinctive evolutionary trait of human beings, and so that's easily manipulated, unfortunately, and that's where we get in trouble.
So let me ask this question of you, Gary, and of you, Melody, because I saw a report, I believe it was in the New York Times, that said 18% of, I want to say Black men, but 18, we'll just say 18, voted for Donald Trump. Now, this was, of course, up from the 8% or 6% from 2016. Why do you think there were people in the Black community who saw good in Donald Trump and felt that he should get their vote? Did you talk to anybody? Do you have any friends that voted for him that you can shed some light? Or what are your thoughts about this?
I don't have any friends that I know of that voted for him, but based on the conversations that I've seen, some of the reasoning for that was still the issues that males have with having female leaders. So rather than having Kamala as a female vice president, they opted for still going with Donald Trump because they didn't want to see a female leader. They're just not quite there yet, which kind of baffles me because Black women are seen as great women and we can do everything. But for some reason, when it comes to leadership, it seems as though we're not able to handle that, which I don't understand because we handle everything else. So that's just some of the conversations that I've seen. I don't know anyone that that really voted for Donald Trump.
What do you think, Gary?
I mean, Melody, I totally agree with you on that. I've seen a couple people. I mean, I know a couple people that did vote for Donald Trump that were Black men. They are not necessarily in my inner circle, and not because that they voted for him, but they're just not in my inner circle. But just happened to be they voted for him. Here's what I think. within the African American community, we have seen an increase of challenging what some people will call the status quo. Now, basically, what I heard a lot in some of the ads and through some of the Black conservatives like Candace Owens and some other people, I think it was Diamond and Silk and some other folks, they would say stuff like, come off the Democratic plantation, as they would say. The Democrats have not done you any good. They haven't done anything for you. They expect you to give them their vote, so therefore, since they expect you to do that, you should come over to where we are. You should be free thinking and all of these things. So here's what I think might have happened. You take that with a combination of numbers that appear to be good, because at a certain point in this presidency, numbers went up in terms of employment and et cetera and so on. So you take that, you add it to that, and it makes people think, oh, okay, well, yeah, we do have jobs. The numbers are higher than what it used to be. Now, of course, that does not pay any attention to what came before that, what preceded it. The administration before that, the administration that built a bridge so that those numbers could grow. And I think what happens is that there was that little bit of struggle for some people. I think some people probably didn't have a lot of faith in Joe Biden. A lot of people obviously had some issues, I guess, with Kamala, being the vice president choice, presidential choice. But I think, I don't know if it's one, I guess I'm saying, I don't know if it's one answer, I think, or one dynamic. There was a lot of dynamics. And to be honest with you, I can't see why anyone, would have voted from the African American community. Because once again, Trump comes with a history. The president comes with a history that is well known, especially if you live in the Northeast. It's well known. This is not, he is who he is. The racism is who he is. The divisiveness is who he is. Confusion is who he is. But I think for the African American community, I think that was the challenge. I think people felt as though, oh, you always do this way, but you're being told what to do. And I think that was a problem for some people. I didn't know that the numbers were 18% Black males that voted for Donald Trump. That actually surprised me.
Well, I think that, the 18%, like I said, I'm not sure if it was collective or if it were just Black men.
Mhm.
But, I do know, we all know that, initially 50 Cent came out and was for him until his former girlfriend had to put him in check. And then we had Kanye, and then we had the other Lil Wayne, all of them. But these are rappers who fall into that 400,000 and above tax bracket. So they saw Donald Trump as their savior to help them save their money or keep more money in their pockets versus, Joe Biden, who said that if you make $400,000 or more, we're going to tax you. So, I guess I see the rationale there. And if I were in that tax bracket, I probably would think twice about it, even though Donald Trump would definitely not be, I probably just wouldn't even vote if that's the only choice I had and I was in that tax bracket. But let's move on here, because there's been some debate over who won this election for Biden-Harris. Now, initially, we're all thinking, at least I was thinking that the Black community, specifically in the, Philadelphia and in Atlanta and in Vegas, well, maybe not, Vegas isn't primarily Black, but in those urban cities, those are the people who put Trump up. I'm sorry. Oh, Lord, I'm so sorry. Biden over the top.
Hmm.
However, there is another report that says that suburban white women did it because they had just had enough. Because if you look at the map is red throughout this country. The only blues you see are in those major cities where there is a predominantly Black population. And that's where Biden Harris won. So what do you think? Who do you think put them over the top?
I think it was a combination of those two groups. I think that what happened in the spring and summer with George Floyd's murder certainly resonated with a wider demographic than the original Black Lives Matters movement. It seemed to hit everybody, every demographic group. And when you add that to the race baiting about suburbia that came from Trump's campaign, it was half the Black people I know live in the suburbs. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I think that it's not Levittown, and the suburbs are not Levittown. And I think that that's what they were selling, was that the suburbs are lily white, professionals, good Christians, and anybody who's not that lives in the city. And that's not the reality. There's still suburbs like that for sure, but that's not the stereotype anymore. And I think that I was actually very optimistic after George Floyd's murder because I saw all of these different groups coming together. And it just felt different than sort of the reaction to other inciting incidents.
You raise a good point, and I really want to ask each one of you this question. You said the all groups coming together. Let me ask you, if no white people had become a part of the Black Lives Matter movement or had protested in the streets, hand in hand with Blacks and other minorities, would that movement have gotten anywhere? And let's start with you, Melody. What do you think? If it were just Black people in the streets raising hell, well, not raising hell, but just outraged as we have been. If it was just us with the George Floyd murder and the Rayshard Brooks and Breonna Taylor, would this movement advance?
No, because we've been trying to do it as a group for many, many years. So I think, like I've said before, we need the help of white people that are on our side to kind of help us get through those people that are blocking us and preventing us. So yes, we do need the help of our white allies that are in agreement with us and want to see us advance and be seen as an equal people.
Okay, but Jeb, why do we need your help? Why can't we do it on our own? Why can't our voices be loud enough to get things done?
Well, I think Blacks make up 15% of the U.S. population. It doesn't, even if every African American joined in with a single voice, you don't have the numbers to change. I think the obvious injustice touched a lot of Americans, whatever their color, thankfully, because I think Americans are decent people in general with decent values, and I think it was time. I think especially the younger generations. I look at my stepdaughter and my stepson here in America, and they were radicalized by that murder like nothing I had seen, and I've known them for a while now, like nothing I'd seen before. So that was great, and that was encouraging, and we're not post-racial yet, but God, I hope someday we will be, and it will be because every generation participates a little more, feels a little more those bonds of brotherhood.
So, Brooks,
Yeah.
do we have the right white people joined with us? Because I don't see Edward Koch's grandchildren out marching in the streets. The only one that I really see is Kellyanne Conway's daughter on TikTok, and she's just ranting and raving about Donald Trump. Do we have the right white people to be helping us out here?
No, I'm afraid that we do not. We don't have, the ones we have are great, but they're not anywhere near enough, white people. And white people, I won't say all white people, but pretty much all white people, won't listen to black people. They have to hear it from white people. My dad was wondering, and he raised us not to be racist. He came from a really racist environment. He raised us not to be racist. He's been nursing at the poison teat of Fox News and OAN and Rush Limbaugh for the last 20 years. And he started saying some really alarming things. And I called him out on them, in the last, during the protests of the summer. It's like, I don't understand why it's that. It's like, well, ... And he heard me a little bit, but he couldn't hear it from someone marching in the street. He had to hear it from another white person.
Interesting. So, Vicki, do you agree with Brooks's assessment? And if we don't have enough of the right white people, how do we get them?
Well, to me, every movement needs allies. And I certainly feel like I'm an ally in the movement for Black, Hispanic, for minority rights, any group. I'm straight. I advocate for LGBT rights. I think that no group by itself, with the exception of straight white men, can get anything accomplished on their own. And that it's a numbers game. So, the nuns and the priests who taught me were almost all white. They marched in Selma with Dr. King. They got arrested protesting the war, Vietnam War. And I always saw that support. But it was always taught to me that this is our movement too, but we're not in charge. We're there to be supportive. We're there to lend our voices or any other kind of support. But Brooks is right. I mean, if there are people who will only hear what you're saying who are like them, if you are the same as them, whether it's how they're taught or what in their experience, whatever. Even with the pandemic, there are people who will only listen to other people like them. It doesn't exist until it affects them personally. And I think that's maybe human nature, but it's certainly pretty common.
Gary, you brought up Diamond and Silk and Candace Owens. So why is it that how is it that they could be so far removed from what's happening in Black America that would make them stay on a Trump bandwagon? What is that?
I absolutely have no idea. Okay, I'm just going to be honest. I have no idea. It doesn't make sense to me at all. I guess it would be more what I said earlier. I mean, I think there are some people who I believe that there are some people who just feel that there is something wrong with our political stands, our beliefs. And actually, to be honest with you, I think it comes from another place. Once again, I think we're looking at this president as a person that can be very manipulative. Once again, if I can get you to agree with me if I can get you to see the quote unquote good in me, like that's my African American friend over there. Look at my African American friend over there. If I can convince you to do that, then um, maybe you might buy into what I'm saying. So I, Diamond and Silk, Candace Owens, they are confusing to me. But I think once again it goes back to what we were saying earlier. There is that small challenge within the African American community, politically. Some of it is probably even generational to some degree, maybe, but where people simply believe that the Republican Party, or however you want to look at it, is there for our benefit. I think that it is also. I think some people probably this. It could be something in it that benefits them. So, like when you talk about all the rappers and stuff that are saying, I mean, it could be something that benefits them. The crux of the matter for the Democratic Party, though, I think, which is really where I'm trying to go, is the fact that the Democratic Party has to think about the African American vote. They have to think about whether or not are you taking it for granted. See, okay, so, and I hope I'm not going too far off the wagon here, but I live in Philadelphia, and I live in a heavily Democratic area. It would be very easy for a Democrat party in Philadelphia to assume that I'm going to vote for them. I can't vote. Well, I mean, I rarely ever see a Republican politician in my area. So I guess I'm trying to state these are where some of those thoughts come from. I don't agree with that, but this is where some of those thoughts come from. So if I can make you feel invalidated, if I can make you feel that you're not getting, that you have no self-worth over there, no worth over there, then come to me. What do you have to lose? So I think that's what I really think that is probably the spin that we get from Diamond and Silk, Candace, a few other black conservatives that are out there. I think that's the spin, and in some ways it sort of caught a little traction, but not enough. And I don't think it's really going to catch that much traction, to be honest with you. But that's
Okay. Well, while you were talking, Melody, she did a little hand gesture.
yeah.
And so I want you to elaborate on what you were trying to say, Melody.
Just for the names that you mentioned, Diamond and Silk, I feel they are more entertainment, and I feel like they're getting paid for his team.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
They are some sort of financial gain. Candace Owens, she's married to a white guy. Not saying that that's her reasoning, but I don't feel like she's one of those power to the people, strong black girls that is like, I'm gonna stand up for my people. I think she kind of toes the line, so she feels like she needs to kind of satisfy both sides and more leans to the Republican. I don't know what she's had some bad experiences with black people or Democrats or something, but I kind of feel like that's along with why she is the way that she is. But I just wanted to say one other quick thing about what Vicky and Brooks was saying. That was kind of what I was saying, why we need our white allies to kind of help us, because we've been saying the same thing, but they say the same thing for us, and it helps. And I'll give a real quick example. I used to be a pharmacy technician at Kmart. There would be people that would come and they would just ask something simple. What brand of rubbing alcohol do you recommend, the store brand or a name brand? And I would say the store brand is just as good. They would want me to ask the pharmacist, which was a white man. Me and Tony had a very good relationship. So I would say, hey, Tony, what brand of alcohol do you recommend? He would say the store brand. And I would say, the pharmacist said the store brand. They would go get the store brand. Me and him would joke, and I would always say, they got to hear it from the white man because they're not going to believe me. I'm saying the exact same thing. So that's just an example of kind of what we were talking about and, what I've experienced in the past.
We've all experienced that, that's for sure. So I guess the other question that I have here is, what about these pastors? I am baffled at the number of pastors who support Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, I a little personal here and tell you that my grandson's grandfather on the other side is a huge Trump supporter. I don't even like him coming in my home because we'll get into an argument, and I'd rather not. I try to respect that he is or supposed to be a godly man. So but I don't understand that. So can somebody, maybe nobody here is a man of the cloth, or a woman, but can anybody explain? Are they getting kickbacks for this? What's going on? I don't understand this.
Well, I don't know if they're actually getting cash for doing this, but they're getting something just as good, and they're getting their face in front of millions of people. And for a lot of performers, and I consider Diamond and Silk performers, a lot of these people, they live to get retweeted by Donald Trump on Twitter, because that means 89 million people are going to see their name.
And that
I think a lot of this is completely, totally ego driven.
Well, I'll just say, I know your grandson's other grandfather, and I am totally shocked because I like that man, but now I have a different opinion about him. I do feel like there is some sort of financial gain, but I hear a lot of these teachers that are so supportive of him. They go back to that pro-life thing. So that's what they're like. I'm
Yes.
pro-life, and he's for pro-life. What about all the other garbage that he's for? Should be against. But that's what I hear.
Brooks, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
I will reinforce what Vicki said, and that it's about power, is specifically what I was saying. And what Melody said about anti-abortion, because that was a huge argument I had with my brother about that, because he still supports the Republican. He claims to support me as a gay man, but he supports the Republican Party. And I'm like, how can you do that? And what it finally worked its way to is opposition to abortion. And that's the only issue they have left. They've been proven wrong in their opposition to equality for people of color. They've been proven wrong in their opposition to equality for women. They're still fighting those things, but the culture has moved past it. They're wrong on climate change, and pretty much everybody knows it. When you have the military and the insurance companies are making plans for sea level rise and more storms, you've lost that argument. The only argument they have left is the babies. And they don't care about those babies once they're born. I don't give a shit about it. But while they can still control women and they can still control the narrative, that's their issue. And the whole anti-abortion thing started out as a racist argument. It has its foundation back in the 70s, I guess, as when people couldn't be quite, Republicans couldn't be quite so explicitly racist in public, but they could latch on to the conservative evangelical white churches through opposition to abortion. And that became their end. Protect those little white babies, white in parentheses, babies.
Gary, did you want to add to that?
I don't even know if I can add to it. I mean, that was said so perfectly, to be honest with you. I mean, within the African American community, there is a large, huge, historically evangelical base. The church is huge in the community. It's there, and definitely the pro-life issue is once again, it's something I think that people have latched on to. For me and most people I know, are we concerned about children that are not born yet? Yes, we are concerned about that. We also understand that there's also issues that are connected with all of that. But more importantly, what happens when that child is born? when the child is born, when the child is here. The energy that goes into keeping a child in the womb, and then when the child is out, there's no support. There's no support to the family. There's no support to the mother that you are vilifying, the mother that has no choice in the matter of who's making the decisions, because it's not really the women in our society making the decisions to begin with. But I think that's an issue. So, I mean, for us, I mean, I think what happens is that people will play on that. Do you love the unborn child? Most of us love every child, period. But that becomes a struggle for some people, and I think that's why, for some of the pastors, and in this case, really, it's not just black; it's white evangelical pastors either. It's like there's that line that they will not. It's like a line in the sand that they will not cross, and it doesn't matter if everything else is falling apart around them. They're not going to cross that line at all. So it doesn't really make sense. But that's really the heart of the battle.
Okay.
The
All
way
right.
I always put it, the way I always put it is, it's easier to love theoretical people than it is to love real people.
Wow. Wow, that's deep. All right.
And as
Well,
long as those kids are theoretical, you can just love them, love them, love them.
ooh, okay. So let's move on here and talk about, now that we are post the presidential election. Did we not see that this was going to happen, that Donald Trump was going to do all that he could to delay the certifications and not try to declare himself the winner? Did we not see this coming, Jeb? Did you not see it?
No, I think he made it very clear before that if the election didn't go his way, it was because it was rigged. He's always been a sleazeball. I mean, he was, his father was a brutal and ignorant person, and raised this very, very sleazy guy who just doesn't believe in democracy, doesn't even know what the Constitution says. He made it very clear that he wasn't going to accept the results. Hey, I did want to go back to the previous conversation for just a second, because while you were talking, I pulled up the demographics of who voted how, and the black Protestants voted 80% plus for Biden, so that whatever the abortion arguments, whatever it was, didn't hold. They were smarter than that. They saw through it. They saw the wider issue that you guys were talking about. Black women are the conscience and soul of not only the Democratic Party, but I think of America right now.
Mhm.
I really do.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
even self-interest, even if, I mean, despite, the celebrity too we mentioned, that's our future right there. Those are the people that we really need to listen to, that we need to follow. Black men showed up for Biden much stronger. I know it's so really fascinating to look at the minority. How could any black person vote for Trump? Don't forget that like 80% or 75% of black men saw through him too. So there's this 25%. There are stupid people in every race. And there are people that want attention of every race, But let's face it, the populations that saw through Trump best are black women, black men, the Hispanic vote. Everybody's talking about, oh my God, Trump got the Hispanic vote. No, he got the same percentage, between 30 and 33%, that he got last time. They made a lot of noise about Miami because of the Cuban vote, the people that had fled communist countries. The minute you say communist to them, they're going to run the other way. So I want to celebrate the majority of people who did identify the folks that we should be listening to right now and concentrating on, and not pay so much attention to the fringes who couldn't see through Trump and the message.
Speaking of those who could not see, which we're not, we're saying it's 70 plus million, 70 million plus. Are we going to heal as a nation?
But I think a lot.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Brooks.
I'm never quite sure what people mean when they
Go,
say.
Vicky. Let Brooks. We'll go to Brooks and then Gary and then you, Vicky.
Okay.
We were from the last Civil War. This is not new. The fact that they didn't hang Robert E. Lee was one of the worst mistakes this country has made. They allowed that hate and division to fester for 150 years. And so, will we heal? I hope so, because if we don't, we're going to die. I mean, this is kind of the cytokine storm but we weren't healed before. This is all stuff that's being brought up to the surface that is news to a lot of white people. It's not news to people of color. It's not news to black people. It's not news to brown people. It's not news to most women, probably, or half of women.
What do you mean it's news to some white people? I don't understand
that.
That
there really is racism. That there really is. They really don't believe that it's that bad. They don't believe it's that pervasive. They don't believe how it damages a person's life to be told that you are not, that your life does not matter. They don't understand that. They don't believe that. And so we have to heal, but we have to heal from 1865 is how far back what the healing goes. We have to heal from 1610. We have to heal from that. These wounds are deep. And it's going to take us talking about this for the rest of our lives. And as Jeb said, the next generation and the generation after, there's some hope. But we're going to have to keep going. But if we think it's going to be great when Biden is nominated, becomes president, we are going to be sadly disappointed, because now all the right has learned is just don't hire a stupid one. Next time we have to get a smart one. We have to get a well-spoken one. We have to get a one who's not grotesque embodiment of all 7 deadly sins, and they are out there.
All right, Gary, go ahead.
Coming to my TED Talk.
Thank you so much, Brooks.
Thank
Gary?
you. The way, can we heal and will we heal? Those are the two questions you got to ask yourself. Can we heal? Yeah, we can heal. We can heal if we talk about it. We continue to have discussions. If everyone continues to be open and honest about the reality. The reality is that what Brooks just said. Not everybody really believes that racism is that serious, which is probably one of the reasons why you had 70-some million people voting for Mr. Trump. With that being said, people have to be honest. They gotta be open. They gotta be willing to talk about it. I have to be able to talk to Vicky like Vicky would want to talk to me. I gotta be able to talk to Jeb and Brooks the same way. And we have to be open. And in that conversation, what that means is that we might say some things that might be painful, but they might be the things that we need to say. Things that we need to say. Yeah. Now the real question, I think the bigger question is, will we heal? And that's something that I worry about. I think the potential is there for us to heal, but I think if we don't get the first part done, if we don't talk about it, if we don't agree to disagree, if we don't see how we can all come together as one pot, then healing is going to be very difficult, because as Brooks said, there's a lot of stuff we have to heal from. 1610, 1865, 1875. 1990. I mean, you know, and this is not just for the African American community. We can go back to our First Nation people in the 1600s, 1700s, you know, and other people, anybody that has not been at the top of the line, women, anyone that has had any kind of indignation, any kind of subjugation, all of us fall within that timeline. And so we have a lot of healing to do. We got to be willing to heal, but that's it. So we got to hear all of that. The African American story, the Asian American story, the women, LGBTQ. We have to be willing to hear all of these stories. And my fear is there is a huge set of people in America that don't really want to hear this. And that's what scares me.
That's the 70 million that voted for Trump. Okay. Thank you, Gary. Vicky, you want to add to that?
I'm a little uncomfortable with the question, how do we heal? Because to me that it sounds like we're just going to come to a decision. We're just going to heal and one day we'll be healed and it will be done. And I think for me, the lesson of the last 4 years is we are never done. If we take our eye off the ball, that's when we find out that LGBT rights are not established law, that racist cops are murdering Black men, you know, that all of these things are happening because we weren't paying attention. So I think first we have to decide, what does that mean? When will we feel that we are healed? What does that look like and feel like? And how do we maintain it? Because just getting to the point of we're healed, that's the first step. That's not the end of it. How do we pay attention? You know, it's like you put the baby down for a nap and you assume they're going to stay asleep. So you lay down too to take a nap and oops, 20 minutes later they're awake. You know, you have to be prepared for that healing to be disrupted. And what are you going to do to make sure we stay in whatever definition of healed that we want?
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Jeb or Melody, you want to add to that, Jeb?
Yeah, I think that one sign of that healing process that we can measure. I mean, Gary's absolutely right. Most of what has to happen is dialogue, exchange, recognizing the other person as a real person, you know, their story. But as a country, until we work out reparations, we haven't done it. We are not going to get there with African Americans and recognizing everything that happened, that long history that Brooks evoked, until we work out reparations. And America is still far, far away from having a respectful dialogue about reparations. But that's going to be one symbol. That's one step that absolutely has to happen before we can call the healing certainly not done, but even in progress.
Melody?
I agree with what everyone said. My initial response when you asked that question was eventually. And I just think it's going to take a couple of generations and more changes. And I think it's got to be like small chunks. It can't be like small chunks that will all eventually come together like little pieces of a puzzle. Small groups like this, I think will help with the healing, and just continuing to build on that. And it's funny because people always say I'm pessimistic, but I happen to be a little optimistic about this, and I feel like eventually we will get there. Maybe it's just because I want everybody to be happy and get along and be peaceful, but I feel like that.
Okay, very good. All right, so this question actually comes from one of the young people that I tutor. I have a little tutoring thing that I do on the side. And so I got into a discussion about having to prepare for this call on Saturday. And so she, 8th grade, wanted me to ask you all this question. So I'm going to ask it. And I want to thank Candace, because she'll be watching the call, for asking the question. So she wants to know, what's one way you think your life would have been different had you been born another race? So, who wants to start? Oh, you got to think about it. Okay. Well, Candace, I think you stumped them. Very good. Yay. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to just start with Melody. Melody, how do you think your life would have been different had you been born another race? White.
I just feel like it would have been easier. I don't feel like it would have been as much of a struggle.
In what respect?
Um, just everyday living. I just feel like it I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Do you think you would have made more money than you make now, or than you've ever made?
Yes, I do. I think I would have had different opportunities, better opportunities. So that's what makes me feel like it would have been better if I had been another race. I mean, real quick, Scotty, my husband.
Yes.
He is biologically half black, half white.
Yes.
And I have joked with him. He was adopted. He was raised by black parents. But I have joked with him before, and I hope this doesn't offend anyone. But I told him, I said, dude, you chose the hard side of life. You had a choice. You could have chose white or black, and you chose the hard side of life, which was the black side. So I guess that's kind of, what I'm thinking. It just would have been a little bit easier just overall. So I hope that didn't offend anyone, but that's just kind of how I joke with him about it. So, but I do say, but it must be really cool, look really cool to be a black person for you to want to have to join the struggle. So.
And I get that. I understand that totally. Okay, so Brooks, what's the one thing in your life? What's the one thing that would have been different about your life?
I think we were all immediately silent because we immediately knew what the answer to that question was, and none of us wanted to say it out loud. My life would have been more difficult. I can walk down the street in my white skin and my cisgender male skin and know that I live in a society that is set up for my safety, security, and success. I know that. I knew that from the time I was 8 years old. But because I was born a little gay boy, I also knew that was a lie. So that all that privilege that I had could be taken away in an instant. So if I had been born black or brown, my life would have been more difficult. I would not have made as much money. I would not be, have been stopped twice by police. Since I would have been stopped a dozen times or 20 times by police for no reason. And the 2 times I was stopped by the cops, I deserved it. So,
Leave it to you to just say the darndest things. Okay.
It's true. Sir, do you know how fast you were going? Like, I don't want to say it out loud. I was raised by fighter pilots. My scaling got screwed up. So yeah, would have been harder. There's no question.
All right. How about you, Gary?
Oh, wow. I mean, first of all, thank you, Candace, for, the question. You have totally stumped 6 grown adults. We not really know how to answer your question. No, to be honest, I mean, I think the obvious is that life would have probably been easier. And I'm cautioning myself how I say that, because in any race or ethnicity of people, obviously we have people that make bad mistakes. We have people that make poor choices. So just because, for example, because you're white, does not necessarily mean all the riches are going to come your way. And just because you're black doesn't mean that it won't. So let's just be careful with that, how we say that. there are some things that I just feel I would not have had to worry about as much. I think I wouldn't have been in fear as much. Growing up, in Philly, well, first of all, growing up in Goldsboro, just, being a Southern boy, was something about a Southern black boy. You knew where you should be and you knew where you shouldn't be. And it wasn't always that somebody said that to you. It wasn't like someone always said, don't go there. You just kind of knew. I can't explain it. It's just something you knew. Moving to Philadelphia, I feel like I probably wouldn't have been stopped as much by police. I would have had the opportunity to go maybe and get somebody to prove my innocence, and not have to worry about whether or not I'm going to go, to go to jail that day. Um, there's a lot of things. I think that I probably would have had people that would have, even though my high school was pretty good. People would have had more faith in me that I could do what I could do. So I mean, I think there's that part of me that says, I think all of the stuff, as Brooke said, it's the normal stuff that I think that we know the answer to, but it's hard to articulate because I think it's hard to articulate. One, you don't want to offend anybody, but two, you really want to be mindful about what you say and how you say it. Um, I, I don't think my life would have been super great easy, but I think it would have been a hell of a whole lot easier than what it is at this moment. And I like my life, okay, but there's those things that you sit back and you say to yourself, maybe I wouldn't have had to go through that. Maybe it would have been nice to know what privilege feels like, to look at for example, we look at George Floyd, and a lot of people for the first time they feel racism, but that's what I've always seen. But I can't conceive of what it's like to look at that for the first time and, oh my God, racism is real. Racism has always been real. So for me, I guess I would have had a totally different way of thinking. Maybe I would have wanted to be like Brooks. I would have wanted to be like Jeb and Vicky. To be honest with you, I like them. Okay, but I'm just saying it. I think all of us would say it would be totally different.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Jeb, what do you say?
Geez. Yeah, Candace, I think if every person asked themselves that question, we'd be so much further along than we are as a society. I think it's a great question, maybe a fundamental question. I have this totally naive, probably, but idealistic view, a vision of what Black families feel like, and the kind of love and support that again, it's in my imagination, but the Black families that I know are tighter than the family I grew up in, which is kind of a waspy, a little bit cold kind of feeling. So I'm envious of that, and I would have enjoyed that. But I'm the white straight guy in this panel. I'm looking at giving up all of the privilege that I wasn't aware of, particularly growing up. I certainly am now. I would never have moved back from France. I can tell you that. I mean, I discovered there living in France really helped open my eyes to what American society, is and what it lacks. And one of the things that I discovered in France was, at least in terms of African original people, people of color who have a Black skin, they're much better off in France, a much more equal society than you all are here in America. So I never would have come back. I also recognize the amount of courage that it takes to simply grow up being Black in America, and I salute that courage. Wherever that leads you, your character is tested in ways that mine never were growing up. Mine never was, and I think that makes for people who are more sensitive to injustice because you've suffered injustice. If I say that the Black people, especially Black women, are the soul and conscience of America right now, it's because you all have lived through, that lack of that lack of privilege that that I didn't even recognize growing up, and I have to admire that and salute that.
And Vicki, what would you say?
So yes, I'm one of the ones who had to think about this. I grew up in a neighborhood in St. Louis that was very lower class, but filled with white people who would be the first ones to argue that they have no privilege. Education was not valued in my community, except by my parents and a couple other friends' parents. I can count on one hand the number of grade school friends who made it to college. I like to think that my parents would have raised us the same way, to take charge of our lives, to learn as much as we could, to be open-minded, to be passionate about things. I like to think they would still be that way. I'm relatively certain I would not have majored in something as odd as theater or gotten 2 degrees in it. I certainly would never have transferred to the University of Iowa, where I had classmates who had literally never seen a Black person until they went to college. I could not believe there were people like that. How is that possible? I had a lot of, growing up during the 60s and 70s, and I had a lot of doors slammed in my face because I was a woman. And it took a lot of determination and stubbornness to get past that. I don't know if I would have enough stubbornness and determination if I'd been Black. I don't know. I think it takes so much courage, like, Jeb said, just to exist in this country when you're not white. And again, privilege I didn't realize I had, and of course you always feel defensive when someone points that out to you. But if you have any feeling at all, that thought will stick with you for a long time. And it does. I think about it a lot, maybe not on a daily basis, but in different situations.
Okay, well, I'm surprised that none of you, Jeb, Vicki, or Brooke, said that you'd be a better dancer. Okay.
That is absolutely understood. We don't even
play basketball better or football. I mean, really, there's something. Hey, the ideas are limitless.
Hey, I was a good dancer, okay?
If I can just say something,
Yes.
even though my daughter is, she's 29 now, and she became a fantastic dancer. These stereotypes are always something, okay? The things that we believe. My daughter at the age of 5 and 6, however, could not dance on rhythm at all, okay? And I'm just saying that, it is funny because sometimes we go for the stereotypes, and my daughter could not, if the music was going right, she was going left. If it was going up, you could almost bet she was going to be going down, okay? I don't even know why I'm saying that, but there's a reason I guess I was saying it, but I'm just saying this.
But it is a stereotype. It is a stereotype. White people just assume certain things about us, and we assume certain things about them. So I get exactly where you're going. All right. So this is my final question to all of you. Since you've been participating in these Zoom calls, and some of you have been with me from the very beginning, what have you learned about yourself as you've interacted with others? What have you learned? Okay, Gary says he'll go first.
I mean, I'm a person who loves to learn, period. And I've learned a lot about the backgrounds of you guys and other people that I've met. Um, we know that the world is not just like us or it's 100% like Gary or Jeff, but when you're talking to other people, um, when you're hearing them speak about their experiences, it just opens up like a whole new world for me. Um, I love getting to know people. Um, I've learned that no matter how much I think I might know, which is not a whole lot, but as much as I think I might know, there is still so much more to learn. And I think that's the beauty that I get from a panel like this and all the other panels you've done. Beth, thank you so much. It's beautiful to sit, to interact, and just to hear other people speak and describe and just really just talk about themselves and the way that they think about other things, because the way I might think about something may not necessarily be the right way to think about it. So the compromise that goes into it, all of those types of things, I mean, that's what I've learned. I can be a better person.
So let me ask this question. There's a follow-up, and I'm gonna ask each one of you the follow-up as well. What do you hope they've learned from you or about you?
I mean, hopefully, I hope that people have learned that I'm a caring person, that I really do care about what's going on around us. Yeah, I do have my very strong political thoughts, obviously, but I recognize everybody doesn't have those, and that's fine. I hope that people have learned that that we're all in this. That I feel we're all in this together. So, if anything you've learned from me, I hope that you've learned that I believe that myself and all of us here and other people, we're going to be a part of the change. If there's going to be change, it has to start in little groups like this and then spring out. So that's what I hope people will have learned from me.
All right, Vicki, let me ask you the same question. What have you learned about yourself by participating in these calls?
I don't know if this is a good thing, but I find that I really enjoy shattering stereotypes when I open my mouth, because people look at me and I'm a white, straight woman of a certain age, so they think they know all about me. And they're pretty sure they know who I voted for. And then I open my mouth and it's the opposite of what they expect. And I find that I really enjoy that because I had people had their reaction to me for other reasons, but not about race. And so when I bring up race, they're always surprised, sometimes pleasantly, but they're always surprised. And I find that I am much more willing to instigate a conversation about it or join in a conversation about it because I want people to sort of see beyond the stereotype and that, you know, I'm an ally, you know, and, you know, it's like when we wore safety pins after the election 4 years ago to show that we were allies. And I thought, this is stupid. Why am I wearing a safety pin? And a young woman I know who's African American said, please don't take it off. That's how I know who to trust. And so I think that I'm way past the safety pin now because I'm more willing to be vocal.
Okay. So that's what you've learned about yourself, because it sounds like that's what you're hoping that people will have seen about you. So
well, I do hope they see that, but I'm more willing to be vocal about it now.
Okay.
You know, there are other things I've been vocal about, but this one I haven't been.
Okay.
But now I am.
Okay. Well, as long as you're on these Zoom calls, I expect you to be vocal. Okay. So let's go on down to Melody here. What's the one thing you've learned about yourself by participating in these calls?
I don't know if I would say learned about myself or further confirmed about myself that I am a people person, that I like everybody, I love everybody, and that I struggle with like just making everything exclusive when they talk about, we're just going to do everything black. And I'm like, but I have white people that I like, so I can't be like that. So I think it's just further confirmation that I like everybody and I am still willing to try to help us all just get along and be as a people.
So what are you hoping that the others here have learned about you?
To help further move away from any stereotypes that people may have about people, and know that we're a little different, but we're all still the same. So just like Jeb, I almost wanted to cry earlier when you were like, we need to start listening to Black women. I'm like, yes, listen. Stereotypes and hoping that conversations outside continue to further crush those stereotypes.
All right, and since you said Jeb, what have you learned about yourself on these calls?
I don't know. I should turn the camera around to show you where I live.
I think you've been. You know what, Jeb? I think you've been with me from the beginning, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I live on a mountaintop, and in COVID, with my wife being a healthcare worker with at-risk clients, we have a protocol. Basically, I very seldom leave. My life is up here with the two dogs, which you've seen wandering around behind, and my wife, who is every 2 weeks, she's gone for 4 days. She goes to Atlanta and she does her physical therapy, her massage therapy with her clients. And as I say, some of them are at risk. You guys are my lifeline. You're my contact with humanity, but with a mission. It's not just casual. You've not reaffirmed, but you affirm every time we do this that I'm capable of expressing myself. I hope in a way that moves people, or that at least touches people, because you all really touch me. Every time we do this, I feel like I walk away, I'm a better person for this conversation, even if it's just for, I mean, no, it lasts longer than just for a moment, but even if our conversations are very short and are only once a month now, it buoys me. It does. It helps me get through. And I feel good about making contact with people from different backgrounds, and different colors, and all around the country. It's a human warmth that I get.
Wow, you're trying to make us all cry here. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm feeling that way too, Melanie. I'm all choked up inside, Okay. So what are you hoping that we are learning from you?
I mean, I like the fact that I have this intellectual approach, and I know history, and so I hope that and I have a political perspective because I spent a lot of time thinking about politics, writing about politics, and so if yeah, I mean, I hope maybe I've shared a few facts here and there that are interesting or reinforcing, but also that here's a 61-year-old white guy who feels it, and who is an ally, and they're more people like me.
I was going to say, it's like, so you're like, when E.F. Hutton speaks, we should listen because you have, you got the facts. Okay. And E.F. Hutton, do they even exist?
I would never say that.
Okay. And last but not least, Brooks, you've been with us almost from the beginning too, I think.
Almost. I think I missed the first time, I think. But other than that, and thanks be to Mike for linking us together. He's the
Yes.
the glue.
So what have you learned about yourself?
What have I learned about myself? I have learned I'm very introverted. And I've had, again, like Melanie said, it's more reinforced some things that I thought I knew and things that I hoped that I knew, of being able to really challenge my own comfort zone and publicly talk to people who I don't know about really important personal things. And that's something that here to, this time a year ago, oh yeah, you're going to get the Dark 30 to talk about how you feel to people you don't know. Sure. I'm going to be doing that. Yeah, sign me up. So, and I'm thrilled for the opportunity. I'm glad to be able to do this because I have this, and this is kind of reinforcing this idea that I have of the world. I mean, it's one planet with many, many worlds. And we all live to a degree based on what a friend of mine called accidents of birth. We live in pretty different worlds. Jeb and I are both early 60 white guys, but we live in very different worlds because we grew up as the core of our being, our experience of ourselves. We're so radically different. And so being able to share how my world is different from and similar to Melanie's world and Jeb's world and Vicky's world and your world and Gary's world and all these other worlds that are similar to mine and different from mine, as we can kind of understand where they overlap and where they bump into each other and where the friction is. How can we be, smooth some of that friction a little bit? And, we can't, one thing I say all the time, because I'm full of things I say all the time, any of us, we can't smooth the road, but we can be a paving stone that'll make the road smoother for the people who come after us. And we have to do the hard work to smooth that road a little bit, and we get to the edge of it, and we become that paving stone. And then our story stops. And then the next person who comes along after and after and after. So if I get to be a paving stone, then that's an honor and delight. And I hope that maybe that's the thing that I hope that y'all have learned from me, is that, yes, gay white men are really pretty much like white men, but different from white men, and be a paving stone on that path.
I don't know what else to say. Okay, so I guess, for me, what I've learned from all of you is that we can come together as people with different thoughts, different ideas, different paths, and we may even still be going down different paths, but ultimately the goal is the same. And the reason that I have stayed connected with all of you, because I do believe we all share a common goal, a common bond. And I just want to thank you so much. This has just been so great. I mean, we kind of got off on the tangent a little bit here from where we have originally been going, but I do thank you all again for participating in this particular Zoom call. And I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Same to all of you.
Have a good holiday, everybody.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving.
Given.
Stay safe.
Good news you can use for your life. If you wanna get the info that'll help you throughout your life, yeah.